Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Team Building Podcast. I am Matt Johnson. I've got Jeff Cohn with me, and it's just the two of us. We are sans guest today. So we're going to have a fun discussion where I'm going to yell at Jeff about all of his mistakes. No, actually, Jeff is going to yell at himself. So this is all about the top five biggest mistakes that Jeff made in building out his real estate team, and we'll get into a little bit of just the life. So not just about the team, but just more wealth building and lifestyle and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of cool stuff to get into. So first of all, it's been a while. I think it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since we've been on the podcast.
Weeks, man.
I miss you, man.
Hey, Matt, what's going on, man? I'm super pumped. I think this is going to be a really fun topic. A lot of high D's, successful guys, successful realtors want to get on and brag about all the things they've done right. We thought it'd be interesting to get on today and humbly share all of the mistakes I've made. It's kind of an interesting spot in my career because I've been licensed now over 10 years. I've had my team for over 5 years. And so now I'm looking back at 36. I got licensed at like 25. And I'm looking back now, I'm almost 36 in November, and thinking to myself, how could I have done things differently? Where did I make where are the biggest mistakes in my business? And so I think today we're going to unpack that concept a little bit and maybe share with some of our audience members some areas where I feel like I made my biggest mistakes so that you guys don't have to experience the same things I did and go through the pain that I've gone through. And hopefully it'll help you scale your business and leverage faster and overcome some of the obstacles that I've had to sludge through.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into that, let's talk. Just give me a quick update on like the workshops and live stream and where we're at, so people kind of understand the context. This is, as we record this, as we're broadcasting this, this is August of 2017. So the live stream program up and running and rolling, and there's some really cool announcements. I don't think that you're necessarily ready to make them publicly, but just so that people understand kind of where that part of the business is at.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So this all started organically with me going out and visiting other teams, which we'll get into here in a little bit, and learning from top teams. And then as my team grew, we went from like 0 to 400, 500 deals in 3 or 4 years. And a lot of people were like, holy crap, that's really fast growth. How did they do it? And they asked us if they could come visit Omaha. And so we were having so many people asking if they could visit that we decided we'd start charging for it, so that instead of me just giving them 2 hours, I could take off an entire day and build a whole workshop around it. And so today, for $29.97, we host agents from across America and brokers. We're averaging about 15 to 20 guests every month. We try to keep it under 20, so 10 paying clients, and they all can bring a guest with them. And they come out to Omaha. So like this coming Monday, September 11th, we're going to be hosting a group of about 15, and we have a date set. If anyone wants to know more, jeffsworkshop.com, you can learn more about it. Another cool thing we're doing, Matt, is I'm partnering with all of the agents in America that offer workshops like these, because there's like 2 or 3 other really good ones. We're actually creating a partnership where they're going to host me and I'm going to host them. So we're all trying just to build our brands and build our value together, so that we can give people the most content possible in the shortest amount of time and empower agents like our audience to be able to go into their own local market within their own brokerage brand and build out something similar to what we've built out, or at least have the power to be able to do it. And that brings me to one of my biggest pain points was I had no freaking clue when I got into it. There was no one opening up their office. And it comes back to that abundance mentality and being willing to be authentic and share with others. And that was the whole idea behind the workshop. So we, as you know, and some of our audience members know, we expanded last year in 2016 into 3 or 4 other markets: San Diego, Salt Lake, Boston, Lincoln, Nebraska. And then, of course, we had our Omaha team. And what we found was to have the greatest impact on agents across the country, it wasn't going to be through traditional expansion teams, because that only impacted the lives of those 5 or 10 or 50 teams. We wanted to be able to have the ability to impact the lives of thousands. And so I think they say there's a little under 1 million licensed real estate agents in the country. And so I looked at 1% of that demographic. How do I influence 10,000 people? And so what we designed was a company, a technology live stream. As you guys would know, we're live streaming right now on the Facebook. We created a broadcasting studio in our office, and we spent about $50,000 on 4 SDI cameras. We mic'd the whole place, 12 mics in a 1,500 square foot room. What we wanted to do was be able to build a network of top agents across brokerage brands that could partner with us, ultimately be an extension of our team anywhere in the country, but keep all their commission. And so all we would do is charge a fee. So right now, the product is $497 a month, and an agent can partner with us to get individual agent-specific content Wednesdays and Fridays based on what our team is training our agents. We're training everyone across the country that's part of what we're calling Elite Real Estate Systems live stream, or ERS live stream. And then we also offer high level content specific to just the team leaders on Thursdays, every Thursday. And then we also do a one-on-one success call every week with the team leader. So in total, it ends up being 12 hours of broadcasted content out of my office in Omaha, both specific to individual agents that might be on someone's team and the team leader or broker owner. And then they also get a success call every single week with one of our success coaches that's also our success coach for our agents. And all of that's $497. We also negotiated with Boomtown to get a $500 off a month rate with Boomtown. So essentially, if you're already with Boomtown, our coaching product is free. If you're not with Boomtown yet and you are considering joining Boomtown, our coaching product ends up being free, and you get a $500 off with Boomtown and then pay us the $497. So we have a lot of exciting announcements that I cannot talk about today coming down the pipeline. But those announcements are going to be something similar to us partnering with some really big names in the business to offer live stream at a discounted rate, and then also to make it available easier for a certain demographic. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but there's a little teaser for our audience.
Yeah, and Thomas March says that, wow, does this include your vault? And Tom, yes, it does. The vault being like the Google Drive of all of your intellectual property.
Yep. If you come out to the workshop or you join live stream, either scenario, you get access to all of our intellectual property, hundreds of hours of content, literally 30 hours of video trainings that we've put in the vault, best practices, onboarding, offboarding checklists, subcontractor agreements, listing presentation, buyer presentation. I mean, it's chock full of the content. So for me, the biggest thing was when people came and visited, I wanted them to leave Omaha. And in the beginning, it was free in 2014, 2015, but they'd leave Omaha with all of the things my agents were using. And so I wanted to create a vault so when people would join live stream or they came out to our workshop, I could send them off with everything that has empowered us to be successful in our business. The other thing we add, if you come out to a workshop, you get added to a private Facebook group. We have about 170 people in there. It's anyone that has paid us to come to a workshop. So it's high-level individuals thinking big, scaling their businesses. And then also, if you join live stream, there's a separate private live stream Facebook page. So everybody that's part of our live stream coaching product can interact together and network. And to me, that's one of the greatest values of being either coming to a workshop or coming on board with our live stream product, is having access to all those other agents going through all the same things that you guys are going through. And I know it's really important to our success coaches when people go through challenges, instead of us just answering the questions, we'll oftentimes pair them with another agent, maybe that has just overcome that same challenge. And so we'll put you in contact with the people that can answer your questions. We'll answer them as well the best we can, but sometimes it's nice to have somebody else that's going through the same thing.
Yeah, agree, which kind of leads us into one of the mistakes we wanted to talk about today, which was just, you went out and you mentioned that you started to go out and tour some of the offices of people around the country, but that wasn't where you started. You started by attempting to do that in your local market, and you got summarily bitch slapped, essentially, by the local agents. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got licensed in 2006. I just graduated from college. I spent 2 years on a mission trip in Brazil, and then 3 years I got an undergrad degree in business and graduated in 2006, and I got my license in November. And my goal was to be, the best individual agent that I could possibly be within 12 months. I needed to provide for my family, which at the time was my wife and a 1-year-old little girl. And so I started consuming as much content as I could, listening to podcasts, reading books, and networking with agents in my own market. And so my thought was, hey, I'm going to reach out to the top 10 agents. Everyone's going to be willing to have lunch with me. I'm going to pay for lunch, and I'm going to ask them questions about how they build their business. And so I picked the top 10 people that I thought I wanted to be like when I grew up and that were having a lot of success in real estate. I would say over half told me they wouldn't meet with me. And I was a brand new agent. There was no threat. 24-year-old kid, brand new on the street. Who am I? And half of them didn't have time for me. And then the ones that didn't have a lot of advice for me. And at the time, I took it as if they weren't being transparent, like they had something they were hiding. What I've discovered 10 years later is that they had nothing to offer. And I know that's harsh, but they're great individual agents. The ones that are still living are great individual agents.
The ones who are still living. Well, now we know how Jeff built his team. He systematically eliminated the competition.
I knew when I was 24, I'd just outlive everybody because they're all.
That's funny.
And I'm totally teasing. None of them have passed away, and I'm actually friends with a handful of them. But the truth was, none of them had. Everyone listening to this knows what I mean. Where you sit down with an agent, you say, "Hey, why are you successful?" They say, "Hard work and perseverance."
Or, they can't really pin it down to anything.
Exactly. And so I felt like none of them could contextually tell me. And I was just coming out of college. I was like, give me a list A to Z, exactly what I need to do, black and white, to be successful like you are. And a lot of them are like, go golfing, join a fitness club. Like they gave me all these ideas that I thought were so random. I understand now the advice they gave me, but there was no systematic approach. And that's the whole point of our workshop, Matt, is it's to
Yep.
take an agent that maybe has sold one house or an agent that sells 500 houses a year. And we now have a roadmap where we can say, go do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we expect you'll get the result we've gotten. And now we've proven for the people that have come out or have joined live stream, they are getting the results that we're getting. And just so the listeners know, to date, we're at over 600 unit sales, 120 million in volume, and $2.5 million in gross commission income. We expect to end the year over 800 sales, 150 million in volume, and about 3.5 million, making us the number one team at Berkshire Hathaway in the entire world. So we're having a lot of great results, but there's no magic pill. Like if people come out to the workshop, they're like, wow, I expected more. Like they're not disappointed, but they expected there was going to be like all these secrets that have never been discussed. And like you and I have talked about, really, it's just accumulation of everything that's already out there spinning around. But there's so many messages from so many people. We've taken it all and packaged it together in a nice A to Z process of how somebody can scale their business to whatever level they choose to scale it to.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah, and so just getting back to the mistake, so going out and essentially you started off trying to like mastermind and network with people, and
Yep.
you by accident chose the wrong people, but right, you did get it right eventually. Now you started going around and touring offices around the country and stuff like that. So I mean, sounds like the biggest mistake on that was number one, you chose the wrong people locally, and they didn't have anything of value to offer. And then it took you a little bit longer than you would have liked to figure out, hey, I need to go around and just start touring offices around the country.
Yeah, I didn't know I could play as big as I'm playing today, Matt. I mean, when people say, did you ever think you'd be where you are? No, I never, ever believed I'd be where I was
But
today.
Jeff,
Now,
what about the power of positive thinking?
right? So you have these moments as a kid, right? In an
Okay.
immature mind where you think you're going to be successful, whatever that successful picture is in your mind, maybe based on movies you've seen or people that you've associated with or people you know that are successful. I never thought I would be where I am today. But what I'm most excited about isn't necessarily the money I make, which I make great money. It's the power I have now to influence others because of a system that I've built, because of
Hmm.
what we're providing from a value standpoint, not only in my residential real estate business, but in all these other businesses that I own. That to me is the highest level of success where you can then empower others to be successful doing the exact same thing you did. And so to
Yeah.
anyone listening, when I talk success, obviously money is a part of it. For whatever reason in our world, money is one of the ways we kind of track if someone's successful or not. There's a lot of other ways to be successful outside of money. But for me, I needed to provide for my family. I wanted to have nice things. I wanted to pay for college education. I give a lot of money charitably to my church and to other organizations. To me, that was important. But the highest level of success to me is empowering others to be able to achieve at a high level. And so I wanted to build a real estate team that was going to allow me to do it. My biggest mistake, Matt, was after not really finding the value from the agents in my own local market, I assumed the value didn't exist anywhere. So
Right.
I decided to connect the dots of, oh, there's no value here. It doesn't exist. No one has built this thing that I didn't even know I wanted to build a huge team. I just knew I wanted to sell a lot of houses and generate a lot of wealth for my family. And so my
Yeah,
mistake
so
was
it was out there. You just didn't know. You basically stopped looking.
I stopped looking. I assumed it wasn't there, right? So I went from 2007 having what I call informational interviews with top agents in my own local marketplace to 2011. And so from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 5 years, I was an individual full-time agent. So unlike a lot of coaches in the industry, I'd say most, I sold real estate for 5 years at a high level. My last year, I was doing 80 transactions by myself. I had
Yep.
one transaction
GC.
coordinator, no buyers agents or anything. I sold real estate full time. That was my job. I made a couple $100,000 a year towards the end. And we'll talk about some more mistakes that I made. But one of my biggest mistakes was that after my first year, I made $96,000 net in 2007. I should have spent a third of that income and visited the top 5 teams in the country. But I didn't
Hmm.
know they existed. And one of the dysfunctions was I was working within a local brokerage. I had no exposure to national agents. I didn't know teams existed nationally. I didn't know who to reach out to. I wasn't part of a network that plugged me in. And I'm sure there were coaching organizations. I wasn't exposed to them. I kept my head down and I just made prospecting calls and
Yeah.
grinded it out, like how all the other people I met with told me to do it.
Hmm.
But I waited too long. I went 5 years with that. Had I gone 2 years, I knew enough to lead a team after 2 years. In 2009, I should have launched my team, and I waited till the end of 2011. So I was
Hmm.
3 years late. And obviously I learned a lot, but I got to a point where I was unhappy because I was just doing
that was the
same
catalyst.
exact thing. Yep.
Yeah.
That was the catalyst. So that can lead us to our next dysfunction, which was
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
So one of the things Matt and I talked about before we jumped on this was I have this feeling that I put too much of my time and energy into my business. And if you read the book, Gary Keller wrote The One Thing. Matt and I both read it. It's a great book. If you haven't heard about it, he talks about how you want to, what's the word, Matt? You want to have you don't need to necessarily put the same amount of time into everything to have
it's not
well-rounded.
Your amounts of time. It's counterbalancing.
Yes, exactly. So what that point that Gary's making is that a lot of people say to have a balanced life, you have to have the exact same amount of time in every category, which is not the case. My issue was I had all of my time and energy and focus. My entire being was being successful in my business. And I had like a really heightened level of desire because I was trying to care for this family I was responsible for. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, wasn't bringing in income. And now, to be honest with our audience, I didn't come from a situation where if I didn't provide, we were going to be on the streets. I mean, my worst case scenario, I joke about, was having to live in my parents' basement. But imagine how much your spouse would want to live in their in-laws' basement. So that still was like a worst case for me. I'm like, I'm not living in the freaking basement. But that was like my worst case. So I don't come from a world where I'm going to be on the streets if I don't make it. But I didn't want just an average life. I wanted to live life at its fullest and have the ability to do a lot of things. And so I had this heightened level of desire to be successful. So I sacrificed a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources to be successful. I'd say I worked 70 or 80 hours a week. I missed a lot of things when my kids were growing up. I missed time with my wife that I could have helped build our relationship. I missed nights putting the kids to bed. I mean, there were a lot of these little things that now when I look back, my kids are 12, 10, 8. When they were 6, 4, 2, or when they were 4, 2 baby, I was working. My whole world was work, and it wasn't really great quality time. And I was a kid. I mean, 26-year-old kid, 27-year-old kid. A lot of people don't get married till they're in their 30s, having babies in their late 30s. And I was experiencing all that at a very young age, which was part of the heightened sense of wanting to build a successful business. And it wasn't until 2011 where I was feeling the pain and really kind of having regrets that I missed out on some things that I said, you know what? I need to do this a different way. There's got to be a better way, because I did not want to spend the rest of my life. January 1st, it was January 1st of 2011. I had just made like $300,000, but I know exactly what I had to do. And a lot of you out there, this will resonate with you. If you made 50 grand or 500 grand, you knew what you have to do. You know now this year and next year, if you don't have a team and you're not leveraged, you know what you have to do it again. And it was like the heaviest weight I had ever felt when I woke up January 1st, 2011. I knew what I was going to have to sacrifice. I was fine working. I'm fine giving it all to work, but I knew what I was going to miss out on by doing that. And I thought to myself, I have to do this a different way. And that's when I decided to start researching real estate teams. And so our first step was joining a huge network through Boomtown. Now, it could be whatever network you want to join. We were at a local company, so there wasn't no network I could plug into nationally within my real estate brokerage. So I created a network through being part of Boomtown CRM. And I started visiting top teams within the Boomtown CRM all across the country. And some of you may have heard of like Amanda Howard, Hinton Dillard at the time. Hinton's now passed away. Chip Collins. I mean, the list goes on and on. I've met with tons of people all over the U.S. I've been to over 100 offices now over the last 5 years.
Yeah,
but in that
time is like 40 or 50.
Yep. In that initial like 18 months, it was our whole life. Like me and one of my direct reports, our operations manager, Kevin, who's been with me the entire time as we've built out the team, he and I just started visiting people. And we would fly into like Louisville, Kentucky and visit 6 offices in 2 days. And they would just be these like super intense action-packed trips. And what we learned and discovered very quickly is that the people that were performing at a really high level, and I'm not calling out the people who I actually named, they weren't doing anything special. Just like I had said, when you come into my workshop, what they were doing is they were being consistent. They were creating leads. They were training their agents. They were hiring slow and firing fast. They were having team huddles. You know, they were empowering their agents with technology, like all these things that we all know. Yeah, of course, I already know that. But how many of us have a systematic approach to actually doing it? Yeah. Most of us don't. And Matt, you and I interview agents. This is our livelihood now. Most agents, 99%. Have no system. If they say to me their goal next year is to sell 200 houses, I'll say, how are you going to do it? Grind it out. Yep. Grind it out, baby. Like there's no plan, man. That's not a business plan. And unfortunately, that was my business plan for 5 years. Yeah. So that was a huge dysfunction.
Yeah.
So
you've been there before.
Yep. I would say the next thing after that, one of the things I took away that I didn't fully understand when I was interviewing people in my own local market, I was expecting they were going to give me advice on how to generate leads. What everyone said to me, the number one pattern I saw in my interviews was that I should invest in residential real estate. So imagine it was 2006, 2007, right before the fall, and these agents had seen homes double, if not triple, in Omaha, which is a very traditional 3% appreciation a year. They saw homes double in 10 years. So their advice to me was, man, as soon as you can, start investing in residential real estate. I didn't want to know that. I didn't have the money at the time. I didn't know how to create that ability. But it's interesting now in retrospect, looking back at 2007, 2008, 2009, had I taken a third of my income and bought 10 houses or 15 houses, those homes today are double the value in our market. I could have bought them crazy low, and now we're in this super heightened sellers market in 2017. So it's all hindsight. But now I own a business. We've bought 30 doors this year that we're holding. We've bought 20 doors that we're flipping. And I have an acquisition business that I own because I understand it now. I'm still young enough that on a 20-year note at 55 years old, all the rentals I'm acquiring today will be paid off. So at 55 with 100 houses, you guys do the math at $1,000 a month cash flow. It ends up being over $1 million a year. So I'm very intentional now about investing in residential real estate. One of my mistakes was that I didn't heed that advice sooner. What I did do right was, instead of investing in residential real estate, I invested in my real estate team. Right. So a lot of my disposable income went into me building the team and failing forward all over the place, hundreds of thousands of dollars of failure. But if you can choose to learn from those failed lessons, that is a lesson in and of itself and worth every penny lost. So every time I spent money on a lead source and it didn't make me money.
Really what happened is you built you spent the money. Well, spent is a bad word. You invested the money to figure out the best system to generate leads for your team. The team is now the flywheel that gives you the spins off hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash that now you put into the investing side. So you're just saying you could have done it a little bit differently. You could have gotten into investing sooner, but if it took away from you figuring out the lead generation system for your team, then I don't know if I'd trade that off.
I know. I agree. There were things I invested in, though, in all fairness, that didn't play. Like, I've never made money in the stock market. I don't know if I've invested with the wrong people, but I continually lose, and I always contribute. Like last year, I think I put $70,000 into my SEP IRA, 65,000, whatever the limit was, and I still haven't done great. And everyone's like, "Oh, the market's up right now; it's doing great." Yeah, not my stuff. I invested in like Greek shipping companies, and all of that is based on like oil costs. So if oil costs are high, then the shipping companies make a ton of money, and I still haven't made my money on that. Point being, invest in stuff you understand. I own ships literally in Greece, like $1 billion ships in Greece. Tiny little percentages.
Yeah.
I own like 3 steel panels on this side
exactly.
of the ship. But
you own one of the bunk rooms.
Instead of buying a bunk room in a ship in Greece, I could have bought a house in my back freaking yard. And I'm a realtor. So I see the deals. I mean, I've represented probably over 100 purchases with investors. I could have bought all those houses myself. It's insane, man, that like agents would like, why would you invest in the stock market or anything else if you're a residential realtor and you're helping other investors buy these houses? Imagine if you had bought all those yourself or pooled money together with your family, which you call private money, and paid them an interest rate of 7% or 10%. As long as the house cash flows more than the rate you're paying someone else, you can borrow other people's money and it makes it work. So you make a good point. I mean, had I not reinvested in my own business, then my business wouldn't have become the spin wheel that it is. But I did invest other monies that maybe are failed investments that I could have deployed to residential. So that was a big mistake. And I think for the audience to think cognizantly about this, how do you invest your money? And more importantly, how do you invest it into something that doesn't require you going out and doing something? So that flywheel, I still have to go in the office and flip that wheel, and I do trainings and I do team meetings and I'm holding everyone accountable and I'm providing a lot of oversight as the CEO. When you buy a residential home that's managed by someone else, you never think about anything. You give them approval to fix stuff and they worry about the tenants. They pick up the money. I've been doing really well on that. And so stocks are supposed to do the same thing if they're performing well. You sleep at night, you invest in an index fund like Tony Robbins says to do, and that thing's making you money over 30 years. It's supposed to double or triple? I don't know. It's supposed to do really well. So like the law of tens or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think about this a lot with agents. I'll ask a lot of really highly successful people, not only realtors. I'll get around in these social circles, and one conversation I enjoy having is, how do you invest your disposable income? 9 out of 10 people I ask that question to do not have a plan to invest their disposable income. All they've done is continue to reinvest in their business. And while that's great, if that business and that flywheel is continuing to grow, what happens if that business goes away one day? What if like the book, Who Moved My Cheese, or Who Moved the Cheese? The cheese literally moved, but all the mice kept going back to the same place thinking the cheese was going to come back. I think that we're going to see the greatest change we've ever experienced in society when it comes to economics over the next 10 years due to technology, drone technology, shipping companies. We're going to see a lot of change, and I think lots of cheese is going to move. We need to be willing to be prepared to move with it. So what do you own, listener? What do you have that's going to generate revenue to you if your real estate business doesn't work out, or whatever other business you own doesn't work out? What kind of revenue do you have coming in? That starts to be a really scary conversation. So that's always what I talk about, Matt, when I just have met somebody. That's the conversation I bring up. Screwed. You just keep reinvesting in your business. Doom and gloom, baby.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so let's talk about partnering with other people to run your real estate team, which is what gives you the freedom to be more focused on oversight than actually digging into the trenches every day.
Yep. This was another dysfunction. So the One Thing was a book I read about 4 years ago, and a good friend of mine, Tim Heil, who's with Keller Williams, invited me to attend a conference that Gary Keller was putting on in Austin, Texas. Gary started Keller Williams. He was one of the partners that started Keller Williams. And at the conference, there was only about 50 people in a room with Gary Keller all day. 2 days, actually, a 2-day conference. And one of the things I took away from that conference is he talked about, oh man, I lost my train of thought for a sec. Oh yeah, direct reports. So Gary talked about how many direct reports you had running your businesses. And so when you start talking about scaling and leverage, you only can manage so many people under you. And then those people have people under them, and those people have people under them. And I think I remember Gary saying, and Matt, I don't know if you were at the same conference or not. I don't think so. But he was saying that you want to have 5 or less direct reports under you for each business. And so with my residential real estate team, I had to decide for myself, well, who would those direct reports be? Who could ultimately run the business if I wasn't there? I mean, I'm the CEO, but who could be there for me if I wanted to go off and work on the flipping business or go to Hawaii for a month or whatever? And so what I figured out was my success manager and my operations manager were both capable of running my team based on their personality traits. And so the first person that I had in that position was my ops manager. I hired him as my marketing director. So I had a TC, transaction coordinator. And then about a year later, 2 years later, I hired a marketing director, which I wish I had done sooner. He then became an ops manager, and he could run everything while I was away. And then we hired a success manager about 2 years after that held agents accountable. So ops held the admin accountable, and the success manager held the agents accountable. Both could run the team without me being there. And then every week we come together as a management team and have a meeting with just my 2 direct reports. And then I meet with each of them every week for 1 hour, answering their questions, addressing any issues that have come up over the last 7 days. And so those are the 2 direct reports that run Omaha's Elite Real Estate Group. Well, I own 12 other businesses, and I modeled all of them after that. And so now I don't have to be in the trenches with all these other businesses that I own. People are like, how do you run all these businesses? Well, I don't. I found other people to run all of these other businesses. I just have to make sure there's enough revenue coming into those businesses that I can hire people to run the business for them.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my
in the case of go ahead.
The biggest dysfunction was that I didn't find those people sooner, because what those people allowed me to do, I mean, like I shared my story, got licensed in 2006, was an individual for 5 years. In 2011, I started to scale. I hired my ops manager, but I didn't really empower him to run the team for another year or two. So I went 7 years addicted, attached, embedded, ingrained into the business. It could not operate without me. And as we've talked about in previous workshops and podcasts, the more valuable you are to your organization, the less valuable the organization is. The less valuable you are to your organization, the more valuable the organization is, because it can run without you, meaning you could sell it and it'll continue to run without you. And a lot of teams we interview and we look at and we mentor and we coach, over 50% of their sales come from the team leader, the rock star agent that's selling. And they say, yeah, if I wasn't selling, my business wouldn't grow, or it wouldn't even stay above water. Well, no offense, but that's not a business. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like if you that's like a bagel shop.
It's definitely a rock star business.
It's a rock star business. It's like if you owned a Starbucks and you were addicted to coffee and drinking tons of coffee. If you stopped buying coffee from your own shop, the coffee shop wouldn't be profitable. That's not a business.
Right.
Right? It's like you're buying all the coffee from
So what
yourself.
you're saying, Jeff, is I shouldn't open a Starbucks. I got you. I understand.
Right. Matt, that was kind of my subliminal way of communicating to you to not open Starbucks.
Yeah. Oh,
So
man.
a big dysfunction was simply just not having those direct reports sooner, because what happened was I quit working with buyers, which this is my next dysfunction, but it empowered me to be able to move on and do other things. So as a lot of our listeners know, I was able to start a title company, an insurance company, of course, this flipping business, and I own a call center now in the Philippines. We're almost to 100 callers. And so I've been able to do a lot of these other projects that I do put time and energy into, because I provide oversight and strategy calls and stuff like that. There's no way in HE double that I could have ever done that had I been working with buyers agents and running my real estate team 24/7.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's elaborate on that, on the whole buyer's agent thing just a little bit more, because there's a lot of people that want to build teams, aspire to build teams, but they have not let go of the buyers yet, or their entire team depends on somebody who themselves has not let go of the buyers. In this case, let's say they have a partner agent who's the rainmaker in the team, and they're doing the majority of the sales, and a good chunk of that is coming from buyers, which is kind of holding everything back, right? Yep. So what you're saying, that was your mistake was what?
So my mindset was that every opportunity that came through, $50,000 buyer, $500,000 buyer, $1 million seller, any opportunity that was attached to a commission check, I needed to be the person to work that deal, because I was going to be better than anyone else. I was going to convert it faster than anybody else. And then most importantly, I was going to get to keep all the commission. So I didn't know what would happen if I took that lead and handed it to somebody else and it didn't go together. All that commission's lost. Or let's say it did go together and I now have to split the commission with someone. If I was used to making 200 grand a year and I'm going to give all those leads now to someone else and split the commission, now I'm only going to make half. I'm only going to make $100,000, and my business can't run without that revenue coming in. What I didn't understand was there was a third scenario. And the third scenario at the time when I stopped working with buyers was, what if I quit working with buyers and I redeploy all of that time and energy to sellers? If you look at both of those relationships, a buyer typically I've tracked takes about 20 hours of my time from the very beginning of prospecting, getting the lead, working the lead, signing exclusive agency contracts, negotiating a contract, negotiating the home inspection, closing, 20 hours. My listings were taking me less than 10 hours from listing pres to getting it under contract to it closing. So I was like, okay, not only does the listing take me half the time, in Omaha, we split listing commission 60-40, where the selling agent keeps 60% and the buyer's agent keeps 40. So I make more money on the listing. I made 3.6% was my average commission on a listing. On the buy side, it was only 2.4%. So I make more money in half the time. So what if in 2011, when we launched our team, I said to myself, what if all the people I hired, I only let them work buyers, and I was the only one that could work sellers? And every buyer lead I gave them, they owe me 50%. And every seller lead they gave me, I pay them 50%. Because even if I give them 50%, I'm still working half the time. It nets, and I make more because it's a listing. There's more commission on a listing. So net, I'll make more working with their sellers and them working with my buyers. And so that's what I did. So in 2011, 2012, 2013, I just worked sellers, and I let all the agents on my team focus on buyers, and they could not list. And I found in 2013, 2014, I started to believe again in this mentality of, okay, well, what if I didn't work sellers at all? What if I turn the sellers over to the agents, let them work both sides, and I focused on other businesses? I focused on lead gen. I focused on accountability. I focused on workshops. I focused on all these other businesses. Could I make more money? And that was actually the biggest risk I ever took, because at the time, I was making about $550,000 a year net. About 330 of it was my listings, and about 200 was my real estate team. And so when I made the change, I thought, okay, in 2014, if I don't work sellers or buyers altogether, I get out of the selling side, and I just focus on building out my business entities. Can I net 550 again? And I took a $75,000 hit. I made about $475,000 when I quit selling, which to me was a huge win, to never have to work with a client, exit the real estate business, and still make $475,000. But what was fascinating to me is what happened the next year. I netted over $1 million for the first time in 2015. So I doubled in 12 months, because instead of deploying my time into listing lead generation and facilitating the process of selling a listing, I dedicated my time into helping other people do that very same thing. help them dedicate their time into listing houses, dedicate their time into working with buyers, dedicate their time into prospecting. I held them accountable, and I built the wheel that accomplished that. And I was able to go over $1 million. And now I've continued to grow ever since then. I've never made less money the year before. I've never made less money than the year before. And so I continue to scale my business today. And I look back 10 years later and I think to myself, well, what would have happened if I never worked a buyer? I mean, obviously I would have lost the experience. So what would have happened if after my first 100 buyers, I quit working them? And what would have happened if I stopped working sellers quicker and I added agents quicker? And I think that everyone should sell. You should sell at least 100 houses before you think you're going to lead other people. But I sold probably 400 or 500 houses. And I think that I did too many deals. I didn't need to do that many deals. I probably waited 2 or 3 years too long to choose to scale my business out. And so a lot of people will ask, well, Jeff, when's the right time to quit working with buyers? I say today. When's the right time to quit working sellers? You quit working sellers when the agents on the team you own are generating enough money to cover all of your expenses, your personal expenses. So if you need 150 grand to pay your house payment and your car and your trips and your lifestyle, once your team is generating you that revenue, you can quit selling altogether. You can live off their revenue. But if you redeploy your time to building value for them and helping them be more successful and doing the top 3 things that help teams grow, which is recruiting, retaining through offering value and finding more ways to offer value, and training agents to be successful, if that becomes your life, your team like mine can double overnight. We literally in the last 12 months doubled again. So we started this year with 22 agents. We're at 50 agents today. And next year, my goal is to double again. I want to end 2018 with 100 agents. And we're going to do that because that's what I've intentionally made my goal to be. So instead of worrying about selling houses, which is on a lot of real estate agents' minds, I worry about recruiting agents. I worry about training agents. I worry about creating value through offering Boomtown and Vulcan 7 and Mojo Dialer and a podcast and live stream training so my agents can watch all of my team's trainings from anywhere in the world. That's my focus. And when people talk about sales, I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to sell 800 houses this year. That's pretty cool. But that just became the result of my passion. My passion isn't selling real estate. There's no fun in selling. I've done that a lot of times. That's not fun. That's like really boring, to be honest. My passion isn't that. And that's no agent's passion. Yeah. True agents don't love showing houses and selling houses. That's not our passion. Our passion is providing the customer service solution to taking people through the buying and selling process. But more importantly to me, it's serving my agents to help them be successful at serving their clients and empowering them to build teams within my team so that they don't have to sell if they don't want to. So that's been my war cry, is teaching people on my team. I say leaders serve their followers. And to me, the best leaders give all their followers the ability to be just like them. And if you want to help agents be just like you, and you've exited the day-to-day sales, which is a very, very small percentage of agents in the country, if you've exited the day-to-day sales and you realize the lifestyle you can live once you've done that, and done that by generating profit, and to be able to empower my agent to do the same, to me has brought me the most happiness I could ever dream of. Because I told you, I shared with our audience and you, Matt, that I'm in a place today that I never dreamed of being. I now want to help other people get to that level, whatever level that is for them, and hear them say the sentence, Jeff, I never dreamed of being at this level before. I'm so grateful and fortunate to be a part of this process and this network. Thank you for this opportunity. Those are the words that I'm looking for from the people that I lead, not only on my team in Omaha, but agents across the entire country.
Yeah, love it. All right, so we've got, let's call it 3 minutes. So flash forward with me.
Okay.
You and I are having this same conversation on a podcast 5 years from now. Now, granted, it's in virtual reality, and both of us are much better looking.
How could that ever be?
Yeah. So 5 years from now, you're looking back going, okay, here was the mistake I made in 2017, 2018. What do you think what do you think you would say 5 years from now?
Wow. You got me on this one. This will be a good one. Because honestly, anyone in my position is constantly thinking about where are they making their mistakes, where's their misstep. I can share with you some of the areas where I think there might be mistakes, and I'm paying attention. Okay. One is, am I continuing to offer the right value to my agents? So I bragged about how we empower them to build teams. And 5 years from now, do all of those teams leave my team because I'm not giving them enough value? So in hindsight, in 5 years, I'll say, well, helping them build teams was a mistake. But the true mistake I know wasn't helping them build teams, because I have that belief in me that leaders serve followers and give them the ability to be just like them. Extreme accountability, extreme ownership would say, my mistake was I didn't give them enough value to stay with me. Anytime an agent leaves you, anytime a spouse leaves you, this is going to get real. Anytime you lose a relationship with your kids, with your friends, anytime something leaves your life, it's because you aren't offering value to that relationship. When an agent doesn't show up at my dialogue training, it's 100% my fault that when they went to the last one, they didn't get value out of it. So even this podcast today, I think this might have been someone's first time watching. I have to bring everything I have to offer to the world right now in this moment, because someone will never come back if they come to this today and say, oh, Matt and Jeff are they're slackers, they suck, they're full of crap, they're too egotistical, whatever their judgment is on us. And so I am very cognizant to be present in every moment. So one thing would be, what's the landscape of my team look like? Am I moving the right direction to keep up with what the market demands are from our client perspective? Also with the coaching organization that I'm now a part of, am I scaling that fast enough? Am I offering the right value? Are the trainings high enough value that people are going to want to stay on board with live stream? Am I offering enough content? Those are kind of the things. So it's an interesting question that you ask, and I like answering it publicly and being transparent about it. I think it all is coming back to that V word, value. Is there enough value in the different businesses that I own that people are going to continue using the services that we're providing? And is it helping create a greater impact on their lives? And that's what I'm going to continue to look at. That's what we're going to be tracking statistically. And that's what I'll look at in 5 years from now. How many businesses and teams have been positively influenced from the content that they've derived from us? And maybe they don't stay on with us forever, but if they were a client of ours for 12 months and they leave and triple their team size over 2 or 3 years, I'm going to take some of the credit for that journey. Obviously, they were the ones that chose to do it, but our knowledge had a positive impact on them. So
right, draw some satisfaction from that. Yep, I get that. Okay, all right. So let's finish with this. So we talked a little bit about all the stuff that you have going on, with Elite Real Estate Systems at the top of the show. So we don't want to recap that, but go to eliterealestatesystems.com just to get kind of the overview of everything, and you can find out, different links from there. If you want to go direct to the workshop page, it's jeffsworkshop.com. And that's how you kind of keep up on the latest dates and all the information on there. And there's an overview video. So if you're curious about how that works, you can do that. So yeah, this has been awesome. So I think we covered everything. The one thing that we didn't get a chance to get super deep into that maybe we'll cover and dedicate a whole other episode towards it is the time, and counterbalancing and putting the time into the right place and just how much do you really need to put in the business to push the rock up the hill, because that's a really interesting conversation, because there is a balance between, yes, you need to work hard enough at the right things, and most agents, when they do work hard, they work hard on the wrong things. They work hard on the easy things, the paperwork, the operations, the customer service, and they don't focus on the hard stuff. But I do think you're right. If you really are good at following the one thing, and you're really good at putting the right amount of time and effort into the one thing that pulls everything else forward, I think you can have a much more balanced life while you build a business.
I absolutely think you're correct on that. And I think about the other areas of my life where I have struggled. I've struggled with my body. I haven't put enough time and energy in my mind towards my physical body. And there's a lot of examples like that with your personal relationships, with your spiritual well-being. I mean, there's a lot of different areas you can think about, but don't think you need to spend as much time on those things as maybe you spend on your business to make them successful. For those that haven't read The One Thing, just spend enough time to be successful at it. And it comes back to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, where he talks about how oftentimes 20% of people's output gets them 80% of the return. So if you look at a realtor's time, it's 20% of the activities that they do that are actually driving income to them. And so be cognizant in your other areas of your life, what is actually giving you the result, and be realistic and honest with yourself as you analyze, as you self-actualize. And I think the biggest mistake people make is that they're not honest with themselves. Maybe they don't even have the ability to self-actualize when it comes to how they're treating their relationships, or how they're treating their bodies, or their spirituality, or their spiritual well-being, or their businesses. And when you talk to an agent that doesn't have a business plan but says they want to sell 200 houses, they're being mentally weak. And someone needs to challenge them and say, you are choosing to not scale your business by not creating a business plan. And that's what I want to share with anyone listening today. The result that you are expecting needs to have an inspection element. And if you can't inspect a day-to-day, weekly goal, monthly goal, and you don't have an action plan set, you will not obtain the result. And if you do, it's just luck. It's stupid luck. It wasn't an intentional act that got you a result. And what's beautiful is once you have that clarity moment, what they call in sports flow, once you have clarity to know that by doing ABC, you will get to Z, you can scale. And that's what we've done with our real estate team. And that's what we're trying to help teach other teams all across the country, is to be able to know exactly the ones and zeros that need to take place to get a certain result. And once you do that, the sky's the limit. So I hope everyone continues to grow with us. Thank you guys for checking out this podcast. This was a unique one. Not very many people get on and talk about their failures. That was very fun. So I appreciate you guys letting me kind of spew some of my feelings and emotions about what I've been through over the last 10 years. And if anyone has questions or wants to reach out to me, feel free to Facebook message me. I'm just Jeff Cohn on Facebook, JEFFCOHN. Would love to host you at a workshop. It won't disappoint. We do 100% money back guarantee. No one has ever asked for their money back. So come hang out with us in Omaha. It starts getting cold like November, December. So if you're going to do it like October, November. I'll try to dance for some nice weather in November. And then live stream's pretty amazing. If you go to erslivestream.com, check it out. $497 a month. Right now, that gives you up to 30 seats. So if you were a team of 30, you can have, everyone has a seat. We're actually in conversation right now, moving that to 10 seats for the $497. So if you sign up right now, you're still going to get 30 seats grandfathered in. And that's a 1-year contract with us, which gives you all sorts of other stuff that we didn't even get into today. So go check it out on the website, learn a little bit more about it at erslivestream.com. Matt, like always, it's a pleasure, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. A very special episode of the Team Building Podcast.
Very special, intimate episode. Jeff Cohn exposed.
That's enough of that. All right, guys, we are out of time. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next episode.